Hey everyone, welcome to Let's Talk About the POTS Life, your go-to podcast for all things POTS. Whether you're living with POTS or supporting someone who is, this is the place for you.
Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk About the POTS Life. Today we have the pleasure of Cate Siniskalki joining us today.
Yes, we are so happy to have you. This is like one of those the power of social media, one of those other connections. And I heard you speak at, what conference did you just speak at?
It was a PCARES
Right.
POTS and Beyond event. Yeah.
I was actually, that day I was renewing my license, and here in Pittsburgh, I was there for a while, and I had my little headphones in and I was listening. I'm like, oh my gosh, like what, such a good perspective. And I felt like your talk resonated with so many. So I reached out to her on social media and to see if we could have her on the podcast. So we are so thankful that you joined us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I'm glad you were able to listen to that conference because there was so much good information.
So
like I've
much.
been sick for so many years, and there was so many things that I learned that I was like, oh, I probably should have known this, for past 6 years. But
I know I didn't, honestly, even that conference, I mean, it was newer to me. Dr. Nance, who was on the podcast, she sent me a message and said how she was going to, she was presenting there and all of these things. And I'm like, how did I not know about that? I mean, I know a lot in the community, but I didn't even know. And like you said, the speakers and I mean, just the time and effort they put into that. I just obviously tuned in virtually, but it looked amazing.
yeah, it was a lot of work going into it. My doctor, Dr. Colby's the one that it's his nonprofit that put it on, and I just helped out building on the back end stuff and some of the marketing things, but it was so much work, and just the lectures and everything that all the doctors prepared was just so brilliant. And it was I think Dysautonomia International does one similar. I don't think that a lot of people do the conferences where it's doctors and patients in the same room. That was really so beneficial because
Oh my gosh.
one, for patients to see, okay, there are doctors that care and are educated in this is so valuable. And also for doctors to hear patient experiences, I think is always a good thing.
I felt like too the doctors brought such a human side, and that's because you had both patients and physicians there, but I just felt like I didn't feel like when I was listening that it was like lecturing at me. It was almost like you were there and I don't know, and maybe the panel, but just how it was set up, it was so well done.
Yeah, I think the panel was for sure my favorite part of it, of being able to ask those questions that I think a lot of times go unanswered forever, probably. Having the best of the best be there to answer it was awesome. I love that part of it.
Yeah, and answer it so like you and I are like you would talk on the phone, or the three of us sitting here. It was just very down to earth, and I thought that was so awesome. So obviously the listeners didn't get to listen to that conference, right? Or Britt. So why don't you kind of start with your story, when things kind of started for you, and then wherever you want to take us and kind of where we are today.
Perfect. Yeah, I will condense it. I've
Right.
many years in the making. So I was first diagnosed with POTS when I was 17 years old. I think my diagnosis story is a little different than everyone else's. Similar, I was healthy my entire life. I complained of headaches here and there, my mom always said. And then at 15, I had a tear in my labrum in my hip. I was a cross-country runner, and so I got surgery for that, was fine, came back, and then just kept dealing with consistent numbness in my legs. And then in 2015, I was diagnosed with a Chiari malformation, which is where your cerebellum tonsils are slipping down your spinal column, so you don't have much spinal fluid in your head. And at that point, I was just having horrible headaches where I would be at school, and I'm not proud of this, but I would lie. I'd be like, oh, my cross-country coach said he needed me. Oh, okay. And I would literally just go leave and go, he had a beanbag in the back of his classroom, and I would just sleep until the next class period, and I would do it again.
Hey, you had to make it through.
Survival, yeah.
Miserable. So I had that Chiari malformation surgery. I almost died. I got chemical meningitis, was on bed rest for weeks.
Wow.
And just never got better. So from 16 to 17 was that seeing doctors back to back to back. And it's interesting because I went back to the brain surgeon that did my surgery, and I understand that like they have more important things to be doing. It was a little frustrating because I walk in and he was like, "My work is perfect. I don't know why you're back. Like I've seen your
Right,
scan."
like he's done. He washed his hands.
He was like,
of it.
"Everything I've done is perfect, so I can't help you." And he left the room, and I was like, at this point, I was passing out. I mean, I was running winter track, and I was passing out every single day. And I'm like, I was even passing out before this surgery. Like something's wrong here. And so thankfully his PA came in and apologized. She was like, he has no bedside manner. He's great at his job. Kind of sucks as a person.
Yeah.
And she recommended me to go see my doctor I have now, who's Dr. Colby. And that I think was such a huge blessing and kind of fluke because normally, like, I was in the first probably like smaller group of girls in Utah to be diagnosed with POTS. But normally if you go see Dr. Colby, you've had a whole workup done. You've been to the neurologist and cardiologist and all that stuff. I went straight from neurosurgery to Dr. Colby, and he was actually really upset when they first sent me there and went back to the neurosurgeon and was like, "Why did you send me this girl? Like, I don't know what's wrong with her."
Right.
And he was just like, "Look, all that I know is she's hypermobile, like she has EDS." And he then linked that if you have EDS and you get the Chiari malformation surgery, it may not work because chances are it's probably something else causing that complication. And so Dr. Colby and my POTS presented way different. Mine's way more like adrenaline based. My adrenaline runs really, really high. And so the first appointment, I remember he like wasn't super sure what was going on. I had like numbness up to my stomach. I was passing out all the time. I had started having like stroke-like episodes and seizure-like episodes. He was just so confused. And then it was like 2 weeks later, he called me on a Saturday and was like, "So I was gardening and I figured it out."
Yeah, great.
Like, what? And he's like, "Yeah, come in on Monday. We're going to talk through it." And then that Monday, he diagnosed me with POTS and EDS and was like, "I'm not 100% certain, but I think you have a CSF leak. So we're just going to watch that and kind of see."
Which is crazy.
Yeah. So that's when the best thoughts happen when you're like driving or in the shower. And it's like the fact that your doctor was thinking about, like he was clearly you had like struck something with him that he was still thinking about you outside of the office to the fact that like, yes, the aha moment happened and couldn't wait to tell you.
And that is, I mean, he's so amazing. And he definitely loves when there's like a very complicated problem because he loves to sit and stew on it. And yeah, I think just because I was presenting POTS so different than all his other patients.
Right.
Is what took a little bit longer to probably get the diagnosis. And like my heart rate at the time was super low because I was a runner.
I think that happens. I hope that's like that misconception will change. But I think that is missed so many times because it is low. And I say this like, okay, if you start at 55 resting and you go to 100, you're still going up a significant amount. But to like, I don't know, this is where it stinks. I don't even know the right word, but they're like, oh, well, 100's not that bad. Well, it is if you're starting at 50.
Right.
And that was literally right where I was. I think in high school, my resting heart rate was 45.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
And then I would stand up and it would be like 110 and they'd be like, well, it's not that crazy. And I'm like, 45 before. Like, that is
My mom was just diagnosed and that's exactly what happens to her. Cause she's like, Kels, am I losing it that I can feel like she at 95, she feels something. Me, I'm like, oh, I used to start at 95, you know, so it's all relative. But I think you're right. That just adds or complicates the piece that people didn't pick up on it nearly as fast.
Right. And that was because right before I was diagnosed, they did put me in like a heart monitor they had to wear around, like Iron Man for a couple weeks. And I don't know if you guys ever did this test, but you have to click it before you're going to have an episode.
Right. Like, isn't that nice? Because I had no warning when they would come. So here I am. The one time I didn't click at all. And then I'm like, well, it didn't trigger. So the next time I'm like, well, I feel weird. I'll trigger. I'll trigger.
Yeah, I remember because I was like springtime during track when I got it. And they were like, okay, like press it before it's going to happen. Well, it was consistently happening. I did hurdles. And so it was like, well, at the end of this race, I'm certain I'm going to pass out.
Right. Click.
Do I click it at the beginning? Yeah. In anticipation. Yeah.
As you're over your last hurdle. It's crazy because we see a ton of personalities that were active, were, track, softball, swimming, soccer, I mean, you name it, dancers, it's typically what you see. And now I'm assuming the labral issue, and obviously all leads back hindsight, probably more EDS, and things
100%.
start to make sense.
Yeah. It's funny thinking back on, I mean, both, they believe now that I had a pseudo Chiari and that my Chiari was actually caused from my CSF issues because my spinal pressures were so low, it was just pulling my brain down.
Wow.
There was no CSF in my head to float my brain. So basically that was because of EDS. And then it's funny with my hip because I remember I went to physical therapy first, and the guy kept being like, "I swear your right leg is longer than your left." And so he'd like do the little adjustments and would fix it, and I would come back a day later, and he's like, "Okay, so it's longer again. Like something is not
all the time."
Yeah, and so now it's like, oh, like I for sure didn't need that surgery, but it's hindsight. That's okay.
Yeah.
It's crazy too, because I think, did you know when all of this was happening, or even now, I mean, obviously speaking of these conferences, but did you know anybody else diagnosed with POTS, or when they told you POTS, had you heard of it, or what were your thoughts then?
But this was 2015. When I was diagnosed with Chiari, there was one lady in the neighborhood that had the surgery. It had failed. And like she was in a really, really rough spot. So that was like a pretty scary, like it was nice to have someone to relate to my pain, but not hers being a success story was hard. And then, yeah, I mean, TikTok didn't exist. Instagram was still pretty like you're just posting pictures.
Yeah.
Like,
Right. You're not posting about these kind of things.
Right.
there was like Facebook support groups that my parents joined, but I didn't know. I mean, I remember my initial diagnosis, the conversation was, just know, like, by age 20, you will be in a wheelchair, most likely. Like, that was...
Oh,
man.
That was the projected... That's what they projected as your trajectory at that point, was wheelchair bound.
And it was just how sick I had gotten, how not great I was doing. And I think at that point, they weren't super sure on treatment, that they were just seeing everyone get sick with POTS and then just continue to regress. And I mean, I don't know if it's the same for you guys. My first couple of... Like, I got the diagnosis, I saw a neurologist and cardiologist pretty soon after, and their number one thing was to stop all, like, workouts, all cardio thing, everything. I stopped running, everything. And then, of course, I just got way sicker.
That's so frustrating, too, because I get, okay, maybe running, like, stop. But then if you pull POTS, like, it makes you feel like you should do no movement, then you do no movement, and then you get worse. So it's like... Then when you're at that point, it's like, how could I ever do movement again? And it's like this vicious cycle of no answers.
Well, it was so funny, and I haven't even thought of this in so many years, but the cardiologist was like, hey, yeah, stop running, stop everything. And I didn't see my primary care, which was Dr. Colby, for probably another 6 weeks or so after. By the time I hadn't worked out now for 6 weeks, I get back to Dr. Colby, and I'm in worse shape than he's ever seen. And he's like, what did you do? And I'm like, they told me to stop working out. And he was so frustrated. And he gave me a great analogy that I will often share with people that don't understand POTS, which is when an astronaut goes to space, if they don't work out every single day and they were to come back, gravity would be too hard that they just would pass out. Like they literally couldn't handle gravity. And as POTS, it's the same where if you're a little tired and you don't want to get up and move, tomorrow's just going to be that much harder to get out of bed.
So
like
that's a
it's
perfect
the vicious cycle.
It is. And it makes sense when you say it like that. And also, like, from being in it, you're like, how could that be? How could I move? But you really do. You see, even by taking that little step, or we always say, like, even just sitting up in bed. Okay. Right. And then if we sit up in bed tomorrow, we might put our feet on the ground, and then we might move to the living room, or, so, but if you don't do those little steps, oh, look out.
Yeah. It's so crazy. And I feel super blessed because I remember the day I got diagnosed, I thought was like the worst day of my life. I was a competitive wakeboarder at the time, and I was trying out to ride in what's called a rail jam. So they have, it's not a boat, it's like a weird little system is what it's called. And it's electronic, and they have like a little remote control dial that pulls you. And rode so horrible. Like, it was the craziest setup I've ever seen in my life. There was like a gap pipe that I'd never hit in my life, and I'm like, what am I doing? So I started there. It's me and like 10 dudes. I'm the only one who doesn't make it through, and I was like, this is horrible. Like, I had a big plan to get sponsored that day, then obviously didn't make the cut, and then immediately after went to Dr. Colby's office, and he was like, hey, you're going to be sick the rest of your life. And I was like, this is the worst day.
Yeah, not the news you were hoping for. Yeah, you're looking for like a positive spin after a really rough day.
Yes. But I am so grateful for Dr. Colby because in that initial appointment, he said something to me that I still will never forget, which was, you will be sick the rest of your life, but you get to decide how this looks for you. And you get to decide if this is going to define you or if you are going to push through and fight. And that's something I can't decide for you and your parents can't. Only you can. And so even though the conversation was, we don't know what your life looks like long term, but we really want you to keep fighting, I think that really helped me mentally never want to give up no matter how sick I got for the next 10 years.
Yeah, because I always say you almost have to be at rock bottom to be able to be like, okay, I'm going to commit to do something to change it, or that light has to be turned on. I can't want it for you more than you want it for you. I guess it's like that in anything, but very specifically to this, because it takes, and I tell people all the time, I think that's why they join the POTS Life program and listen, because these stories are realistic. We know it's terrible. I'm not saying it's good, it's a piece of cake. You start doing something and woo, like, no, it's,
What's the alternative?
Right. What's the alternative? And you have really crappy days, but we can also now be on the other side to say those crappy days and pushing through those crappy days, like, look what you can get to.
Right.
One of the hard things with it is that it takes a while for you to see a change. So it's not like, oh, I went on an exercise bike and I'm feeling like great the next day. And for some people in that like mental health state, it's like demoralizing that like, yes, I'm still not feeling good, but it's like I love that advice from the doctors. Like, you have to decide what you want your life to look like. So you have to push through some of this terrible bumpy weather so that you can get to that sunshine at the end.
And it really I recognize everyone's symptoms and everyone's pain tolerances is also different, and it affects everyone so differently. But I really think I owe all of my successes a lot to that conversation with my doctor, because that was always in the back of my mind. Again, no matter how truly sick I got over the next 10 years, it was always like, okay, but these doctors aren't going to fight for me. My family can't fight for me.
Right.
I have to decide if I'm going to get up and keep fighting. And I'm where I'm at now, especially, I'm so glad that I didn't. And there were days
For sure
months that I did. But I'm glad at the end of all those, I was able to decide again that I wanted to keep fighting to get back to a mostly somewhat kind of healthy life.
Yeah, and big picture, you can't with POTS, if you go day by day, it's tough. Because it's very hard to also see progress when you feel that crappy. And I had a similar conversation with the physician at the Cleveland Clinic. And he said he took my husband and I in there after a horrendous stress test. They didn't even tell me my results because they were so bad, because it was he even said, he was like, we didn't tell you. The second visit, he was like, I didn't tell you because I thought you'd have a nervous breakdown. And he was probably right. But he said, okay, he looked at Kale and I and was like, the person you were before POTS is gone. And I'm like, I have 2 kids. I'm 30. Like, what is happening? And then he's like, but the person after POTS can be just as good or even better. And I didn't believe him. When you're in that place, and now I see what they mean, but that was like the little voice in my head that, okay, you're right. But I had to do it.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and I think I love that. And that's such a powerful thing to say, because I think looking at myself now, where I'm at today, is so much better than who I was before all of this. But during it, that was the number one feeling I would feel, and still occasionally do, where I was grieving who I was.
1000%.
Yep.
And especially you were 30, which is so hard. I was 16, so it's you're comparing your life to all these people around you that it's you're worrying about things that are not even on this spectrum of what I'm worried about right now.
Yeah.
Right.
And that that changes anybody. Pain changes you completely. So it's of course it's going to shift things.
Yep.
But I would agree. I didn't think I would ever see like the light at the end of the tunnel, or myself being
Sure.
a fraction of the person I was, and now I feel like I'm not only stronger but also getting back to that person.
I had somebody say just this week, and she said it's like a grieving process you re-grieve. And I think it's so true, because in the beginning, at least when you start something, when you're at the lowest of lows, it's like, okay, I've grieved who I was prior, right? So you think, and then you start to get, a little bit more consistency, and then another hiccup happens, and then I think you re-grieve at that level. And then we had people in the program, they were talking about it like month 8 and really hitting their stride and feeling, that taste of like a normal human, which is, it's true. And then she had a little hiccup, and then somebody else got an illness, and it was like, she said, I'm almost re-grieving now because I can do so much more. But you have like new dreams, and she's now focused on the new dreams. I'm like, listen, you'll get there, but you got to like reframe it. But again, all easier said than done. But if anything, listening to your story and my story and other stories we share, you can get there. And I say it all the time. I am probably healthier now than I was pre-diagnosed. I didn't even know how unhealthy maybe I had or was becoming.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm way more health conscious. Which is, I'm so glad I am this way too. Like, I think it's in the long run going to be so much better for my life.
Yeah, being more mindful about the way you move your body. Like you said, when you were 16 and you were running, I did track and we did soccer, and it's like the damage you did to your body. You didn't think about it back then.
Food you ate. Like,
yeah. They give us a nice big Subway sandwich and a cookie after soccer games, and we just ate whatever because you could at that time. But looking at it now, what you're choosing to do with your body, what you're choosing to put in your body is way more intentional, and 100% different than what you were back then.
And I think too, I don't know if what your guys' full diagnosis list is. I have all the vascular compressions as well. And so pretty after POTS and EDS came the MALS, SMA, Nutcracker, CSF, all that stuff. And so I now have a way larger respect for my life than I did back then. I think there's there's a lot of different routes you can go. The route that I went was, one of these things is probably going to kill me. So I'm just going to do whatever I want. Yeah. Looking back, very immature and very naive. And so I was a full-blown competitive wakeboarder, and was taking the most insane slams that now I look back and I'm like, no wonder I was
struggling.
Oh my gosh. And I have CCI, and it's like, I remember I was probably maybe 19 or 20. And they had just told me I had CCI, and my PT was like, here's the honest truth. You take one bad slam and you will be on a breathing tube the rest of your life. And I was like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Do it again.
I just kept wakeboarding, and then, ended up years later taking a slam so hard that I re-tore my spinal tear, and then had the most horrendous year of my life. And was like, okay.
Humbled.
Yeah.
I can't keep doing this. And also, this is not fun anymore. This is destroying my body. And so it's funny because, to think back to, telling 22-year-old me, hey, we're going to give up wakeboarding. I would have thought, I wouldn't have survived. But now I'm like, it's okay. I don't wakeboard anymore.
It's better. How soon after, obviously the EDS and POTS diagnosis, so obviously I know the vascular type things that you're referring to, but for other people, I think just the list that you have.
The alphabet soup you rambled off, yeah.
I think Britt's always like, wait a minute, come back again to those letters.
Keep it simple here.
Yes. So my route was a little different. There was a pretty consistent standard for what my doctor tests for here in Utah, and I kind of went a different way. So first thing was after POTS and EDS, which is Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome. I think we're all somewhat familiar, and that's just hypermobility for me. I was diagnosed with SIH, so I believe it's intracranial hypotension, because I was low.
Okay, yeah, then yes. Yep, correct.
I was low, which goes hand in hand with EDS and then chronic CSF leaks. So they tested my pressures. My pressures were super, super low.
Did you have an injury prior that brought the pressures, or they're just thinking birth abnormality, or?
They think it's from EDS. So I
Okay.
was sent to California to Cedars-Sinai and saw Dr. Shavink there. And when he did my initial myelogram back then, he explained it to me that all your dura, so you have your spinal cord and then your dura goes around it. And dura should be really tight and rubbery. And mine was floppy and completely see-through. Which, like, you don't want to get told that anything in your body's floppy.
Especially, up there.
Yeah, holding your whole back
Yeah, I
together.
mean, that's-
yeah.
That's a
And
big
so
one.
their belief was that there just was not enough pressure to even raise, like,
raise it. Yeah.
and so it was literally my brain was getting pulled down. And so
Jeez.
that in itself was a crazy series of circumstances how we got there. But basically it was a blood patch gone wrong. I was in California. They gave me a blood patch to seal the test of the myelogram. I drove back to Utah, woke up covered in spinal fluid.
Oh.
And
bad
no
patch.
doctors in Utah, like, they were like, we can't help you. Sorry. I was going to school in southern Utah at the time, which is a little bit smaller community. And they were like, you have to go back. Like, we can't help you. And so drove 7 hours back to California and just showed up at the Cedars-Sinai, which is pretty unheard of. But we were like,
You did like we had
Yeah.
like what do you want us to do?
right, I couldn't sit up, I couldn't walk, I couldn't do anything. And so they put an intrathecal catheter into my spine to raise my pressures. And then my headache went away.
Wow.
The feeling of my legs came back for the first time in 4 years. Like,
Oh my gosh.
it was the craziest thing. So they were like, okay, so they did this was 2016, my first dural reduction and laminectomy. So they took out my L1 and 2, I believe, at this time. And then it's basically like a corset around your spinal cord. Not really, but that's how it makes sense to me. They cut your dura, take it, and then like fold it and then stitch it, increase the pressure.
Yeah, to tighten it up essentially.
Yeah. And so that was 2017. Started to get a little bit better. And then, I mean, with this stuff, it's just so crazy because it's like once one thing's kind of better, then you're like, oh my gosh, my stomach hurts. And how long has it
Sure.
been?
Because I think in our brains, when you live in bodies like this, your body subconsciously just ranks the highest thing.
Yep.
And then you're like, okay, I've addressed. And now, like I say, like the next line comes.
100%. And yeah, so at this point I was in college, so I'm like trying to get my degree while it's going on. And then I was diagnosed with MALS or MALS, I don't ever know how to say it, which is individualized ligament syndrome. And at the time, I was a bit of a problem child because I would lie to my parents and tell them I was doing really good. I was living like 4 hours away from them.
Right. So they're like, okay, she must be doing great.
Okay, and then they would end up coming to see me, or I'd come home and they'd be like, you've lost 40 pounds, so
Something's not right.
You did the opposite of what we expected in college
like no
here.
freshman 15.
Oh yeah, no. So and my memory's a little foggy, so I do apologize. But I believe so. I had the mouth surgery, and then I actually didn't get better after that one at first. Like the pain, because mine was I would eat food and it would just hurt like so bad as soon as food would hit my like stomach area. And the pain went away with MALS, but then I fell into I couldn't absorb any food. So right after my MALS surgery, I did end up losing. It was like 30 pounds in 2 weeks.
Jeez.
I remember my brother called my mom and was like, we were living together at the time in college, and he was like, she is not okay. Like, my arms, like I was just skin and bones, but then I had this huge bloated stomach. Like, just was so sick. And so then I got my first feeding tube right after then. So I had NJ while in college, which is not the college dream.
No.
Not what you were hoping for, no.
No, not at all. Wasn't great for my dating life, if you can believe.
It's not something you typically, see in college on a date.
First date convo, yeah.
Yeah, it's just feeding me. Yeah, it was not great. And then I was able to gain some of the weight back, started to do a little bit better, and then they learned that my renal vein was insanely compressed, and I was just making insane amounts of blood. And so then it was the nutcracker surgery. So they did an auto transplant on my own kidney. So my left kidney is now in the front of my body.
Jeez.
I believe tucked under my ribs. I think that's where it ended up. because I didn't have enough room in my pelvis because of pelvis congestion syndrome, of course.
Well, once you have one, and I think like these are all like the like words that you see sometimes on their own, like pelvic congestion syndrome and things like that. But wow, you got
it all.
Yeah.
Got really lucky with my genes on this.
Thanks, Mom and Dad.
Yeah.
And then after Nutcracker, I'm trying to think. I had like a year break. I remember I started to do better, was having the most insane POTS flare-ups, but like was doing somewhat better. And then the stomach pain came back and I started to kind of lose weight again and I was just puking so much. Jeez. So then they were pretty skeptical that I had SMA, which is where your intestines are smashed from your like your artery kind of like wraps around it, and so or your ligament does, and so they scanned it. I had a pretty horrible SMA compression, but the scary thing with SMA is they will sometimes reroute your intestines and it doesn't get better.
Right.
And so we did a test where they did another NJ tube. They placed it pretty far down, and so it was past my compression, and I just did tube feeds, and my pain completely went away.
So it was when it was coming through that area.
Okay, like it's a pretty high chance. So then I'm trying to think, because then we switched me to a J tube, which it was supposed to be like an in and out procedure, turned into like a 20-day stay in the hospital.
Jeez.
It was horrible.
Man.
And then I ended up losing like 30 pounds from that trip. So then I wasn't strong enough to even get the SMA surgery.
Right.
And a couple months later, they finally scheduled me, rerouted my intestines. And then I was somewhat chilling for another like year and a half. And then I'm not sure which one it was. I slammed really hard on my snowboard early in the spring. And then that fall, I slammed really hard on my wakeboard. And then like maybe I think it was the wakeboard one because I was trying to learn a new flip and I caught an edge, which is where like the water will like literally grab your board and rips you down.
Oh yeah.
I actually found the video the other day. I can send it to you guys if you want it. I remember I hit so hard that like I didn't know if I was in the water or if I was out of like in the air. Like I was like, can I breathe? Like, can I not?
Like it was that hard of a rock to your system.
So hard. And about a week later, I had 8 seizures in a row.
Oh wow!
Holy cow!
Like from 16 to 24, I would have probably a seizure a month, and they weren't epileptic. They were non-epileptic seizures, so doctors ruled them as me being crazy and pseudo seizures. At the time, they weren't sure if it was because of my low CSF or because of my C2 will go out of place all the time. And they were like, your C2 slips into your spinal cord. So we're not sure which one's causing these.
That's triggering it, right.
And so, yeah, but I'd only have like one. Like it'd be like one seizure super fast and I'd be like.
On your way.
Yeah, it'd be fine. But like I'd be like down for a couple of days and then get back to normal. And this day I had, 8 seizures back to back. I would wake up and then immediately start going back into it. And that was a huge wake-up call for me of like, one, my parents were out of town, so it's my brother and sister-in-law taking care of me. And like, what a horrible situation to be putting them in.
Right.
Like the damage it did to my body. We had a nurse that's one of my neighbors, and she'd seen me in some pretty rough conditions. And she came over that day and told me like probably 2 years or like a year after and was like, I had never seen you.
That
like,
bad.
I did not know what was going to happen because you were just in the worst shape. My blood pressure was so low, like was just horrible.
Jeez.
And so that was November of 2021, I believe. From that November until the next November, I had a seizure every single day.
Oh
wow.
My gosh.
And was just so brutal. And so what they ended up finding out was it was because my brain would start to sit on my skull. So the issue is, and this is something that I wish like doctors and not even doctors, more hospitals would learn. Because I mean, I've had the EEG with all the glue in your hair
right.
a million times. And the issue is in America, they can only test it from what's the front of your brain?
Oh boy.
Your frontal lobe?
Your frontal lobe.
Yes. Yes.
Epilepsy, that is, I believe, maybe you need to fact check me on that one, but I believe it's from your frontal lobe. the seizures I was having were coming from my cerebellum, which is
in the back.
That was sitting on my skull, and they can't test.
Oh my gosh. I guess
were
I
like-
never thought of that because my youngest had febrile seizures. And I think that makes sense to me because when you go in, we called it his hat because he was so young, but you know, it's all more up
In the
front
front.
versus like lower down. And he had multiple. We stayed in there and
Overnight one?
yes. And now that I'm thinking, you're right. Like it's more concentrated at
In
the
the
top.
front.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's placement. I know in Germany, because one of my friends went for a bunch of the surgeries out there, and they can test your cerebellum seizures
Wow.
there.
Okay.
So I'm like, I don't know what the gap is in the
No, I
technology
don't know.
or the
Yeah.
information. But yes, I had a seizure every single day for the next year because my pressures were just so low. And so I ended up getting a redo dural reduction laminectomy in 2022, like I think November, December. And so I don't have my L1 to L5, my like back spinal processes. I don't have those. And so they redid the dural reduction, redid the corset, and I'm now over a year and a half seizure free, which
Wow.
Yay.
That's so amazing.
is never thought that would happen. And I'm very, very grateful that it did.
And I'm sure your family and your parents, and I
Yeah.
mean, that's just so much. One, to endure mentally, but I can't imagine like loved ones seeing it. You know, like that's just
brutal.
so much. What does your life look like daily now?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a 90 difference. I live by myself for starters, which is something I never thought I'd be able to do.
Yeah.
I work a full-time job, so I'm a director of marketing for a group that oversees 3 of the boating dealerships here in Utah. So I didn't ever end up going pro in wakeboarding, but I work in that industry.
Yeah, and that feel right.
Still keeping your toe in it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I have some things I do on the side. So I love photography. I help Dr. Colby out when he needs with marketing for his nonprofit. And then a couple other side things. I'm training for my second marathon right now.
Oh my gosh, that's
congrats.
so cool.
Thank you. I don't know if I love or hate running, unfortunately.
I think that's the feeling is you love
Yeah.
and hate it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But people that like to run, like Britt, like you did, yeah, like
Yeah.
See, I don't have that in me, but like you either have that love or hate in it, and
Yeah.
I'm just more of a hate. So yeah, I just
I think for me, it like gets all my negative energy out.
Yeah.
I'm a way more pleasant person, I think, when I'm
run.
running. I'm a lot more chill. Pleasant's the wrong word. I'm way more chill as a person when I run because it gets all my anxieties out and all that stuff.
all
So,
the
yeah.
adrenaline.
It's
Extra
definitely,
adrenaline.
yeah, that
Yeah.
mental health aspect of physical fitness is just, you
Yes.
can't pass it up. Yeah. I
Yes.
mean,
No,
therapy's
not at all.
great and needed, but also run it out
Running.
sometimes.
Like I read a study once that the pounding of your footsteps is so similar to how EMDR works.
Oh,
Like,
because it's
it's-
like a
Yeah.
tempo or whatever. Yeah.
Super interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, it's weird because I think I went from living a full blown sick person life to now like a healthy sick person life where it's like, obviously I still have pods, I still have all my things like,
Yeah.
but I've finally learned to manage them. And where before it was like maybe one decent day a month, I would say now it's maybe one bad day a month.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Because it is, we say all the time, a lifestyle change, right? So Britt has Crohn's, I have celiac, POTS, obviously. And those things, we're not saying like take them away, but we manage them, my diet for like same thing with Crohn's, like you learn how to manage, and not that they're still, and I think it's good for people to hear exactly what you said. You still have hiccups. I know I have POTS. Like I know that every once in a while it'll remind me like you did not have enough water today, but they're not lasting things to where you were however many years ago.
Yeah, yesterday I actually had one of those days where I woke up and wasn't feeling amazing, and I was like, oh, I'm fine, and didn't drink and didn't really eat food all day long. And then I got to the end of the day and I was like, I still have POTS.
It humbles you, even at that level.
And I think every once in a while we'll still have those days where I'm like, oh yeah, chronic illness. Right. Got it.
Still right. Sometimes it just reminds you in different ways.
Right.
If-
But yeah, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. I was gonna say, if you could give some advice to someone, your story is so unique compared to I feel like anyone else
I'd
you've
love
talked to. But if you could give some advice you've been with this for 10 years, your POTS diagnosis now, right? So someone that is at day one, what would you say to that person?
If your doctor can properly diagnose you with POTS, you should listen to them and their treatment plans. I was really stubborn and didn't. And I was like, I'm not going to take these pills and I'm not going to drink and I'm not going to wear these compression socks. I think that was a big one that I needed to hear. And then I think on top of that, similar to what my doctor said to me, like, and kind of what we just talked about all day, like, POTS is so hard. And it genuinely is very debilitating and it hurts and it sucks, like, plain and simple.
It does, right.
But that doesn't mean you can't live a life, because it's like, I have been able to create a life for myself still. And that doesn't mean that there are not days when I wake up and I am so exhausted I don't know how I'm going to function. But I've just learned I do not want this illness to win. And that's like my number one thing throughout the whole thing is I'm going to accept it, but I'm not going to let it define me. And I'm going to keep doing what I would like to do. And I think it's really easy for doctors to say, hey, you have this, it's going to be hard. And not give up, but that's kind of the way it's presented, is like, well,
Sure.
here's the death sentence, so like, that's the
I don't
business.
have anything else for you, so
Right.
yeah.
And I think if it was presented more in a way of, look, this is how your life could look, because there are some people that complications happen and
For
like,
sure.
they don't ever get better and they don't ever
Sure.
get stronger. And that's so heartbreaking. But also, let's try and fight, because we might be able to get you here. Where it's like,
At least try. Let's at least
Right.
try. Let's at least try, see where we get to. And yeah, instead of, all right, see ya in 6
Surrendering,
months. Yeah.
surrendering. That's such a great word. And I think it's just in my own story and some other friends that I've seen, it's like, I went from relying on daily IVs, like giving myself IVs to even function, to now I haven't given myself an IV in months. Like,
Yeah.
had a PICC line. I've had it all.
Literally.
And I'm medical device free. Like, there are success stories, and I think we forget that. And I think it's really easy to get stuck in, my life sucks, this is horrible, no one else has to deal with this, which it's all valid and all true.
Sure.
For sure.
And I think it's important to learn to feel that and then go, okay,
Time to get out.
Yeah, I can't change this. And exactly, it's time to get up and keep pushing through, because what else am I going to do?
Yeah, there's no other option, right? Like, it's okay to sit there and be upset. This is something that's not going
Right.
away. There's no magic pill. You can't snap your fingers. It sucks, like you both said.
It's true.
But it's the reality now. So I'm going to be sad, and then I'm going to move on and decide how I'm going to let this impact my life.
Right. I was talking to a coworker when I was training for my first marathon, and he was like, "Why are you doing this? Like, it's not healthy. You're kind of insane." And I was like, I think it kind of went hand in hand for me, where I'm going to be in pain regardless. That is my base of every single day. Now that number is going to fluctuate. My baseline's a 5. That's my best days. I'm still at a 5. I can be in pain sitting at home in my bed, or I can be at pain
Doing
riding a
something.
bike.
Yep.
Walking, running. Like, that's and I recognize that's a very rare mentality. That's just the mentality I was born with, thankfully. And I think that's truly what's gotten me to the success of where I'm at now, of kind of have my POTS fully managed, is just the acceptance of, I have this and I can't change it, but what are all the things I can do to take it down or not, and to not have it be interrupting and destroying my life.
It's true. I had a psychologist say to me, Kelsey, you have POTS. You're always going to have POTS. And that was like my light bulb moment. And I've said it many times on here that you're right. Like, it was like, okay. And it's okay to have the little hiccups, or know in your head, like, even right before this, we were sitting here, and it could just be because I had too much caffeine today. But I was like, I said to Britt, I'm like, my hands are a little jittery today. And I'm like, that's weird. But I also know that sometimes that's just how POTS comes up. And I had more water while we're talking, and now it's fine. So it's like, yes, you have them. Things might come up, but then you add the other pieces. And just because you feel something doesn't mean we're falling apart. We're going back to the lowest of lows. Like, feel your feels, but then also know, like, let's keep going and next day. Yeah.
And I think too, this is, if there are any other people that have my mindset where it's, I'm just going to push through, and because I think a lot of that stems from, on like a mental side, I wanted to prove that I was valuable because doctors made me feel invaluable. So I think that's where it's like kind of like a trauma response for me.
I think it's our type A personalities.
Yeah.
I think I did one of the hardest things I've ever done this year, which was I got offered my dream job, which is the job that I would have wanted my entire career, but it would have required me moving across the country, to having no support system, to them not understanding my health. And then a conversation was, hey, if you were to get sick again, we don't know if we would keep you. Like,
Right.
right. And again, like that little voice in me was like, well, I have to do it to prove to everyone.
show you.
To prove that I'm strong, to prove that I'm, good enough to do this or healthy enough that it doesn't matter. And I took a long time to think about it. And my thought was similar of, I have chronic illnesses. They are not going to go away. And if I think for, 10 years, I was stuck in this chaos hamster wheel. My life was so chaotic that I began to just crave chaos. And I still do at times where it's like, that became my normal. So when things get peaceful, I feel like it's all wrong.
Yeah.
And reminding myself that, okay, I am sick. Now, that doesn't mean that I should just quit my job and lay in bed all day long.
Correct. Right.
Because that's not going to do me any benefit either.
No, you'll be worse.
I'm going to be way worse. But it's okay if I don't take this huge jump that for a normal, healthy person would be very hard and very, very tricky.
Right.
It's okay for me to go, that's not going to benefit my health, so I'll wait for something that does. That's an okay thing, and that's okay to accept that. And I've had to learn that not to use it as a crutch, but to be realistic about it and be like, okay, I do have chronic illnesses. I do need to make some decisions accordingly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So true.
Cate, it has been an absolute pleasure learning about your story. I mean, I was not expecting all of that, but that is, thank you so much for coming on and sharing it. It was just wonderful to hear, and I hope that it helps someone out there that's listening.
For sure.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate being here.
Yeah, I just think it's such an easy conversation. We always say, like, how much, even I learn as we move through it. I know Britt feels the same, and it's just so good to, I think your story is a perfect example of, look, there can be a lot that you're faced with, right? But you have found a way, and not that it was easy by any means, but how to turn it and keep pushing and give hope to people that, hey, yes, you may have these different diagnoses, but like, look where your life can go. I feel like the opportunities are endless with everything in reason, and just reminding yourself what you're diagnosed with doesn't have to define you. And I think you're like a perfect example of that. So I am so glad you joined us today. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Join us next time. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow us on all your major streaming platforms, and you can watch us on YouTube.
Yeah, we'll see you next time. Bye.